Brian, thank you so much for being here with us.
Austin, it's a pleasure to be here with you, for sure. Appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. Daniel, it's good to see you as well.
Yeah, you as well.
This is, when thinking about somebody who was good with numbers and had a little bit of experience with aircraft and budgets and everything else, you were at the top of the list. So why don't we start at the very beginning? How did you stumble into this crazy space, and how has Sun Air evolved over time with you at the helm?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you. For all the poor folks that work for me, they've heard this story way too many times, but it's because I'm always thrilled to tell it. I have had no aviation background whatsoever. I had no pilots in my family, no experience. Didn't even know that there was an airport at Camarillo or at Van Nuys. I just had no experience with private aviation at all. And so it was only through a serendipitous set of circumstances where I met the principal ownership of what is now Sun Air. And I'll save you from all the boring details, but I was hired in late 1999 to be a family office manager, really per se, for the family that owns this company. And the way that played out was the company that they run now today still was going public in 1999. And so when the in-house employees of the public company could no longer be doing the private affairs of the principals, I was hired to take over that part of the business. And in that set of roles and responsibilities is real estate, insurance, estate planning, taxes, investments, and oh, by the way, this thing I got going on over at the airport. I, by training, I'll get into that a little bit more, but by training and education, I am both an accountant and an attorney. Taxes primarily. When I came out of law school, I went to work for one of the large public accounting firms, and I was doing all those things: estate planning, joint ventures, taxes, insurance, all that kind of. And so when I was hired by this family, I got dumped into all that stuff really quick. And the airport part was the part that was new to me. In my interview, with no real setup or understanding as to why, he started talking about how he had a Hawker and a Gulfstream and an Augusta. All those words were new to me. He's talking about building an FBO, didn't know what that was. Camarillo, Van Nuys, no idea what those were. Anyway, but so we continued to talk, and he convinced me to come work for him. So I left the public accounting world and came over to work for the family, and then immediately instilled myself as the CFO and general counsel of all of his business activities, including the aviation piece. And in those days, Sun Air Aviation was a flight school here at Camarillo Airport. But the day one plan was to begin to build our FBO that exists here today. And so from about January 1st, 2000 to 2002, the FBO was built and opened. And so there's the FBO building that we're in today, and then also the first hangar. 2005, a couple years later, then we completed our second set of hangars. And then in 2010, we completed a third set of hangars here at Camarillo. And I know you guys have seen those. But so through 2010, we constructed everything that we have here at Camarillo. And then that's when we really jumped into Van Nuys. We got 2 hangars in 2011, 2012. And then here in the last couple of years, we've opened 2 more hangars in Van Nuys. So we have a lot of hangars and office space at both airports now. We're equally large in terms of real estate in Van Nuys and in Camarillo. So it's been quite an adventure. I've been working here now for over 23 years, going on almost 24. And to hear me talk now, I'm always quite surprised to see all the things I've learned and grown through watching this company grow up. And so it was then 2013 was when I transitioned from being the CFO and general counsel then to being the president of Sun Air Jets. I had learned enough to be dangerous by that point to actually take over the leadership of the company. And here in the last couple of years, I was also announced as the CEO of Sun Air Jets. So today I'm the president and CEO of Sun Air Jets, and we have about 120 going on, maybe 130 employees that work for us, the real estate I described, and we got a fleet of over 20 airplanes today of various sizes and shapes. So been a lot of fun.
Brian, obviously COVID brought a lot of curveballs for the industry. And I think that we've certainly seen a lot of these assumptions made in the budgeting process become false out of, nobody's fault, but just a change in the environment, a change in the industry. What costs have you seen increase, and what ones do you actually think are here to stay versus there may be some normalization for some of them?
Yeah, I was my experience over the last couple of years, it's the new normal is in many ways horrible. you know, because of the consequences of COVID. During COVID, no one was flying. Here at RFBO at Camarillo, it was those months where we had the worst single month of fuel sales. I believe it was April 2020, where nothing was flying. Nothing. You had pilots afraid of going to the Marriott or getting into an Uber or into an elevator. Aircraft owners, rich people, they just didn't want to be anywhere near what somebody had exhaled, right? And so COVID was interesting because it shut down our industry to a large degree. But then when it was done, all that pent-up demand flushed through the system, and we've all seen that. And so now all of a sudden there's effervescent flying and this desire to go, and all these trips that have been in the hopper now are being flown. And so what the results of that have now impacted budgeting is that parts supply issues have become scarce. And so parts costs have gone up. Parts availability in itself parts being unavailable is a challenge, causing delay in operations or aircrafts being laid up because of parts availability. The thing that's obvious that's happening is crew salaries. Because of the demand on flying, crews were being, attracted and coached or poached, I should say, to new opportunities. And so in order to keep them, you had to just keep continuing to pay more. So crew salaries have gone up. I think that's going to stay. In the last several years, fuel price fluctuations. Back when I started in this industry, fuel would change by pennies per week. And now it's just wildly fluctuating. You get 20-cent variations. I've seen even more than that. It goes up one week, goes down the next week. So it's that's made it difficult to budget for. And then another thing I think also is the general cost of inflation. Post-COVID and post-government subsidy programs with, QE2 and all the money that was put out there, and, trying to prop up the economy, the PPP programs, inflation has been a result. And so as a cost of inflation now, some of the parts warranty programs from our friends, notably our friends in Phoenix, they now are doing inflation surcharges, and they're auditing the utilization of the airplanes and giving utilization adjustment invoices now. So what used to cost you a whole lot less, now all of a sudden they're really putting the screws to it and making sure that their costs are covered. And so all the parts warranty programs have gotten more expensive because they too are paying higher costs for labor and parts availability, and they're passing through those costs.
That's a great point. In your opinion, and I'm sure you've seen a combination of just about everything under the sun, are parts programs as attractive as they once were? I mean, I know that there's been different players who have entered the space. I know that there's a lot of different degrees of service. There's a lot of ways to stack them. There's some people who just self-insure and kind of, open that checkbook when something goes awry. What's your take on it? Is it worth, especially through, again, whether, let's say it's a brand new owner and somebody new to the industry who maybe doesn't have the experience, how do you guide somebody about making that decision?
Well, the unscheduled maintenance is the biggest scare for most aircraft owners. Something expensive coming through that they weren't expecting. So the insurance component, the psychological insurance component, if nothing else, that the CFOs appreciate is not having a spike in a monthly cost or a cash flow requirement to pay for something that's rather expensive. So particularly for new aircraft owners, parts programs, warranty programs for engines, APU, avionics, parts, it's really not a bad idea. because it does smooth out the expense. They're always quite happy to realize that display unit in the cockpit was covered by a program. In Sun Air Jets, we really try and show our aircraft owners the benefit of those programs, right? If you had not had this program, this part would have cost you $34,000, something like that, right? So then all of a sudden they can justify the benefit of those programs. So those programs are great in regard to just what we call telephone maintenance. When it breaks, you make a phone call, new part shows up. So that's actually really nice. You don't have to bother the aircraft owners for parts approval to get them to agree to doing that replacement, that kind of stuff. So the parts programs are really nice. Now, that said, the challenges that we've had recently is availability. So even if you have a parts program in place, you're kind of hoping that they actually have one when you call. And they're struggling just like everybody else is struggling. They don't always have one. We recently had to purchase a Hawker part out of program because we just couldn't wait for them to give us one. So it's a little bit of a change in the marketplace right now. But generally speaking, the engine programs, the AP programs, the avionics parts, it helps an aircraft management company like Sun Air Jets to avoid a surprise for an aircraft owner. They don't mind fixed costs as much as they like that a whole lot better than variable costs that surprise them.
So Brian, I think one of the most challenging parts for either a new owner or somebody who's considering changing management companies is determining the right questions to ask. We've helped guide clients through the process before, and sometimes it's even challenging for us to compare apples and oranges. Everybody's budgets look different. Everybody's audits, as you're saying, are probably pretty similar. On the outside, a lot of these companies probably look, feel, and operate relatively similarly. What would you suggest a prospective owner or somebody considering a change in management? What are some of the more detailed items that you would say, hey, maybe take a peek at these 2 or 3 things, look a level deeper, and here's what truly creates a good management experience, and here's how you may be able to spot that?
Yeah, well, picture's worth 1,000 words, Austin. As we've talked about this before, and any time I get a chance to invite an aircraft owner out, or their staff, or their crew, come out and see us. Because when you walk around Sun Air Jets, you see the investment we have, you see the facilities, you see the professionalism, you see everything that wraps around your airplane. And by comparison, if you go talk to some of our competitors potentially, or someone who doesn't have that kind of foundation, it's a phone and an office and not a lot of people and no assets to speak of. So the worst thing you could do as an aircraft owner or prospective owner is to just make a decision based on a paper proposal. So first of all, I would answer your question by saying, go look and see, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. Anything I write down about how smart and pretty we are, it pales in comparison to coming out and sitting in a room with me and my staff. And that's, again, the size of Sun Air. Aircraft owner comes out to meet with us. DOM is going to be in the room. DO is going to be in the room. Aircraft manager is going to be in the room. I'm going to be in the room. Charter sales is going to be in the room. Flight control is going to be in the room. You get a family experience when you're here. So those things. Number one, come out and see. Number two, a couple of specific things that you're going to want to know about is, quite frankly, anymore these days, crew costs, maintenance life cycle. Okay, if you're going to really think about what this airplane's going to cost you, you should know where it is in detail from some of the high fail components. When's the next major inspection coming up? We have a Global Express right now going through a 20-year inspection. If you didn't know that was coming, that's going to surprise you a little bit, right? So get deep on the schedule, the due list for the maintenance, know what's coming up, and then talk to somebody realistically about what that's going to take. Those are just a couple of things come to mind. Dig below the surface on the high point items: maintenance, fuel, pilots.
How did you change your business during COVID with a lot of the work from home, from just a personnel and then technology standpoint? And then what have you kept post-COVID? And then what have you changed back to what you're doing now?
Yeah, right. Well, look at us now, right? We all learned how to do this video. We didn't know how to do this pre-COVID. So isn't this kind of cool that we all learned how to have meetings with aircraft owners or employees via television picture on your computer. We've got conferencing facilities in our conference rooms now. We didn't used to have cameras and televisions and all that kind of stuff. So, the work from home item was okay. We all suffer when, there's not the water cooler talk. That's a blessing and a curse, right? For people just hanging around the office chatting with each other. But it's no fun to have an office that's quiet or empty. And so we did that oh, by the way, if you don't remember, in the air charter business, we were essential employees. So, we all drove around. Drove around in my car with a letter just in case I got pulled over by the police to demonstrate why I was on the freeway. I'm going to work because I have to. I'm essential. So not a whole lot changed for us during COVID, other than the fact that flying and utilization was down, fuel sales was down. But nevertheless, we came to the office because we're open 24 hours a day, right? I can't send all my line service technicians home. I can't send my mechanics home. We didn't close our front desk. Now, flight control, charter, flight operations, those people could work remote, and so we've kept some of that. And it's an employee benefit, right? To allow people to have a little bit of flexibility of schedule where you're not always just droning into the office and then going home. Some people have, childcare to worry about. It really enhanced their lives. So it's been an okay rollout of COVID to now have a little bit more of a hybrid model where, people got a little bit better lifestyle out of it, but yet still we're running an active business and we figured out how to do it.
Brian, where do you see the industry in 10 years? What looks the same and what evolves?
Well, isn't that interesting, right? If you knew for sure, you'd put your money on it and you'd be rich, right? There's a lot of investment going into the changing of the business model. The advanced air mobility stuff, I'm still not quite convinced that we're all going to love having drones flying over our houses. A lot of airspace issues, safety issues, pilot supply issues, real estate issues. You're going to have this not in my backyard kind of so it's a somewhat unproven model. Everybody's really excited about, especially here in Los Angeles for the Olympics that are coming in 2028 and stuff like that. I'm somewhat still skeptical about exactly how that's going to implement. But there will be an effect on our business, I think. Certainly the platforms for democratization of what we do have had an influence in terms of trying to get more people into airplanes. We've had the per seat model kind of gain some traction, but then also kind of seemed to have gone away. That had its challenges and headaches and heartaches. But the technology going into being able to book charters, being able to source charters, information sharing, all that is really kind of gaining some traction. So we'll see how that impacts consolidation, acquisitions, whether or not private equity is still interested in the space to build and grow and invest into what we do. Because the challenge for any sort of normalization of what we do is it's very one-off. It's very specific. No two airplanes are the same. No two aircraft owners are the same. And there's differences of models. There's owned fleets and non-owned fleets, stuff like that. So I believe that in our space, Centerjet's space, the high net worth owner, private companies, they're still going to own airplanes. No matter how the industry changes, Centerjets will have completely enough opportunity for managed aircraft in what we do.
With the business aviation being a relatively young industry, how do you see people that were in the early years that are probably now a little bit older? How do these people, business owners, what's the best way for them to exit? And on the other side of that coin, what do you think would be the best way for some young entrepreneurs to be able to take advantage of people starting to get to an age where they want to get some exits?
Yeah, well, tough one because this is such a capital intensive industry, right? At least for how we do it, right? I got a lot of steel and concrete, got a lot of buildings, got a lot of people. This is not an inexpensive business to get started in, right? So some of the folks we know in the industry have grown up through sweat equity, where they started under the tutelage of somebody else who ran the business, and eventually they take the business over. So in terms of the ability to exit, the challenge is selling something while it still has value. And in airport real estate, one of the unique things about airport real estate is that it's a diminishing asset, that is its possessory interest. And so the longer you keep your lease, the less valuable the real estate is, because then all of a sudden you revert the reversionary interest in the facilities goes to the airport. And then you get the benefit of having to lease your facilities back from the airport authority. So having value in airport real estate is dependent on how much lease term you have left. Having value in aircraft management and aircraft fleet operations, that's always been a tough one, because there's no guarantee that that client's going to be around in a month or in a year. So if you're going to purchase a fleet operator, we've seen many instances. I've got many stories of how an operator gets bought and then all the clients just evacuate, and they have nothing to show for all the money they spent to acquire that business model. So the challenge for someone who's in the business that's aging, that wants to get out, is to package it and pick the right time, and that right time could be sooner than later. Because later doesn't necessarily help you. And for new entrepreneurs coming in, quite frankly, I think one of the best ways to do it is to do it from the ground up, be vital, learn a lot, and then be in a position to take over a company, a successful company, because it's going to be difficult for you to buy your way in. It just takes a lot of money to do that, and most young entrepreneurs don't have that. So, and I guess maybe I'm just kind of going with the way I know how to say it, and that is, that's what I've done, right? I've been here for 23 something years, and made huge inroads in terms of what I know and institutional knowledge, and Sunair has become such a part of me now. I can't see myself, a part of it, such a part of my identity. I love telling the stories, and it's just one of the things that people around Sunair like the most about having me around is being able to tell them everything about everything that's ever happened in this company. So that's how I've done it, is to be able to just kind of be around and absorb and learn and become all the more valuable every day.
Brian, thank you so much. Your insights today have been tremendous, and always such a pleasure to chat with you. If people want to get in touch, what's the best way?
Well, I'm completely reachable. I live here. So you can call me directly at Sunair, call the front desk. My email address is out there on the internet. There's a contact us at our SunairJet's website for sure also. So it's not hard to find me. All you have to do is try. My name and information, I think, is on our website as well. So be happy to talk to anybody who's interested to learn more. I've got battle scars and stories well beyond what we've shared today.